Hello, Author Nation. I'm Melody. I'm your host and founder of Author Nation, and you are watching, so you know we are a YouTube channel. But did you also know we are a community of authors supporting authors? So if you'd like to join Author Nation, the link is in the description. Join us today. Become a successful nonfiction author. Today, we are going to be talking about nurturing your book business and what that entails and how to find the time to do all of the things you need to do. My guest today is Deneen Bolin, and she has always loved figuring out how things work. A scientist from the beginning, she craved digging into the mysteries of life and understanding why things are the way they are. After working in the pharmaceutical industry for 15 years, she dropped out of corporate America to homeschool her 4 children. She has always had a side business and in her life, and shares with other business owners and creatives how to manage a well-lived life of children, family, friends, and clients while not suffering from burnout. I think that's something we all need to learn. Her 12 books, 15 online courses, 4 podcast programs, and syndicated radio show all express her desire to share her systems and routines with others. Welcome, Deneen. Hi, Deneen.
It's wonderful to see you. Happy St. Patrick's Day.
Yes, happy St. Patrick's Day. I brought all my green. No, I'm kidding.
Yes, you did. You're on it. You are on it. You are rocking that.
Exactly. So I love what you do, and you do quite a few things, and you put it all under an umbrella, and it's called the 8 Gates. I'm just really curious about the name. Where did that name come from?
The 8 Gates is a tribal term, and part of my work is I'm a minister, and I also work with Native American groups in North and South America, and sometimes I get called to Ireland. It just depends on what's going on. But the 8 Gates is the philosophy that you have the 4 directional compass points, right? North, south, east, and west. These are all gates, and we're about ready to move through one, the spring equinox. So spring equinox is a gate. So there's 4 gates in your life. You also have the gate that's above, the gate that's below, the gate that is found only if you go within, and the gate that is only found as you move out into a community. So it's a metaphysical concept that's been around internationally for a very long time.
Yeah. Oh, thank you so much and that's why you chose it. It has deep meaning for you. So that's beautiful. Thank you so much. Let's talk about that transition from corporate life to life at home, homeschooling kids, having a side business. I know that right now there are a lot of people out there who are considering that or who have recently done that. So can you tell us a little bit about your journey from corporate America to at-home mom and educator?
Certainly. When I first started homeschooling and when I dropped out of corporate America, it was back, I like to tease my kids, it was back in the dark ages of 1996. We didn't have Bluetooth yet. YouTube wasn't even a thing. I had a MySpace account. Okay, so I like to share with them the dark ages when we rode dinosaurs. But anyway, so it was 1996. And back then, corporate America looked very different than what it does today. You didn't have maternity leave. I worked in a laboratory that had a class 2 sort of situation going on where I had to wear hazmat suits into the areas because I was working with viruses at that time. I also worked with radiation. So for whatever reason, corporate America really doesn't like sending a pregnant woman into those sorts of environments. And so so I had to leave that position. The corporation was more than happy to move me into a different location, but it was playing to all my weaknesses. That job was not a good job for me because my job was in problem solving and working with these hazmat sort of materials, and sitting there and putting me in quality assurance was a great way to have me just leave. So I left corporate America. It dropped my family and I's income by 54% because I was the primary breadwinner. And so I spent the next bunch of time trying to figure out how to live on only one income. And startlingly, we were able to retire early, my husband at the time and I, because of the amount of money that we saved. And so that was the first 5 books I wrote was on debt-free living, how to drop out of the workforce and all that. So it really started off with just, it was kind of a crushing blow, but I realized I didn't want to be the type of mom that was in the break room trying to nurse a baby, and that you just didn't have the options you do now. And it was going to be much more difficult. Not that I'm saying it's ever easy,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
it would have been horrendously difficult.
Yeah. I mean, and it certainly could be better than it is now, even though
Of
it's
course.
better now than it was
Yes.
then, you know,
Most definitely. Yes.
step by step by step by step. Yes,
Yeah. We
absolutely.
call it the 1% solution. Each
Yeah.
generation gets it a little bit more and a little bit more. And one of the things I would like to share with the Western world is the fact that we still, as women, we can own property and we don't have to have a man sign for us. We have
Yes.
the right to choose whether or not we get married. We have the right to a divorce of our own choice. Like we can walk away from that. And so when we look at 80% of the rest of the world and what we have, you just remember the Dalai Lama did say in 2009 that if you want to see change in the world, it must come through the Western woman. Why? Because we have the purse strings. We have the ability to make our own money. We have the ability to own land. These are very powerful concepts to 80% of the rest of the world. Just a little reminder when we
Yeah.
start talking about progress and everything, I just like to bring it back into just remember where we are.
Well, absolutely, absolutely. So I've lived in a bunch of countries, and I've seen for myself how different it is. So absolutely, thank you for
You're
bringing that.
totally on point. You know
Oh,
exactly what I'm talking about.
yeah, thank you so much for bringing that back into our conversation. Thank you very much. And so let's talk about your very first book. You've written 12. So if you think back to that very first, oh my God, how do I become an author book? Tell us a little bit about that.
Okay. Well, it was really my master's thesis that I ended up converting over into a book. And this is going to cause a lot of people to laugh, but maybe it'll be a fun memory lane. So remember,
Yeah.
I was writing in 2005. YouTube still isn't out yet. We were starting to learn about this thing called Facebook, but only the college kids were using it. And I was one of the cool professors because I would let them chat on Facebook while they were in my classes as long as their grades didn't drop and stuff like that. So, it was very early on in that period of time. I did not consider myself an author. I considered myself a college professor. I was teaching physics, I was teaching sciences to non-majors. I was in a liberal arts college. And so I didn't really see myself as a author in that regard. Uh,
Mhm.
the book was called Money. It's Not Just for Rich People. And basically, I was trying to help my freshman class be able to get their scholarship money to work all the way through because I was noticing the grades were dropping. So that was kind of the beginning of it. And people wanted my master's thesis. I was running to Kinko's. I was photocopying it, and I charged them $15 just because that's how much it cost to do it. I ended up self-publishing, but it wasn't called that back then. It was
No.
called Vanity Publishing. You were
Mhm.
so vain that you
Yes.
remember that
Yeah.
you were actually publishing your own book as a self-published. Now it's all the rage, but so I was
Yeah.
a lot of people say I was one of the pioneers.
Yeah. Oh, that's
Yeah.
brilliant. And we do still have something that is considered vanity publishing. When you're publishing a book just for your family, a very small run, 2 books, 4 books, but it's different now than self-publishing, right? It's actually they've divided somehow. And so one of your more recent books is the Thriving Solopreneur. Can you tell us a little bit about that book?
That was actually brought about almost every book that I have ever published. Well, no, every book I have ever published, I have had people pushing on me to write it. Okay. So
Mm.
I'm one of these authors that came kicking and screaming into it. It wasn't like I felt, oh, I have something to share and I need to get
Yeah.
it out there. And there's a lot of authors like that. And I'm like a cheerleader for those authors. I'm like, go, 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 make
Yes.
it happen. Because if you have that drive, then it needs to be put in print. So, number one, I totally respect those authors that have that. I just wasn't one of those. I was more like Daffy Duck holding on to a door frame and Bugs Bunny shoving from behind, trying to get me out the door to make my books published.
Yes.
Thriving Solopreneur was written in 2020 because we had so many people dropping out of the workforce. or they were forced out of the workforce. Things were happening. Everything was shifting, as we all know. And
Yeah.
so those people had never run a business before. And so I was like, you've got to get money coming through the door. And they're like, I don't know how. And so I started teaching online courses. And at the end of all of these online courses, I think I ran over 22 during that year of different types of courses. I put them all together in the Thriving Solopreneur. And this is just for your community. You will not find the website that hosts that on Google. We got a bot that attacked us. And so Google has de-indexed the site. So if you want access to the book for free, even though I launched it for free and everything, you'll have to go to Amazon, or Melody, Anna, and I will be happy to give you that website information later on. But it's de-indexed, so you won't be able to find it unless you click links.
Oh, wow. Okay. So
Yeah.
I'll make sure I have that in the
Sure.
description for everyone so they
Mhm.
can go grab that. I think that would be an excellent book for people to read who are
Mhm.
watching.
Oh, yes.
Authorpreneurs are solopreneurs most of the
Mhm.
time, right? And
Oh,
so
yes.
they need that level of support. And how do you create this book business which is what we're going to get into. And so let's talk briefly about the book and
Okay.
the promise of the book. Like, if once they grab that book and they read it, what is that promise to them? Like, what are they going to get out of that?
So the book was written for a lot of folks who had experience with MLMs, multi-level marketing kind of
Mhm.
experiences. We had I'd say over 38% of my people that came to me were part of the MLM organization. So you'll see that mentioned quite a bit in the book. But the
Mhm.
biggest thing is, what is it that you're doing? So as an author, a lot of us are building something. We're either launching a book, we're building our newsletter list, we're trying to build our readerships, or we're marketing. So depending upon what focus you have in the moment, uh, the book is always going to point you to the 4 hours a week that you need to always have, no matter what your project is, no matter what you're doing. I highly encourage people, when it comes to like time management, there are 4 hours a week that you are non-negotiable. They never are not being operated in. And the first hour a week is prospecting. How are you bringing new people to you? Okay, you hear this all the time, but how are you doing that? In my case, I always wanted to cater to people who were on LinkedIn. I always wanted to get them off of LinkedIn. I wanted to get them. Now, some authors have a preference for Facebook. They feel that it's more comfortable there. It just depends on your thing. I'm a business owner, so I want to talk to other business owners because they understand what I can do for them. Whereas Facebook, I don't know if somebody's lounging by the pool as they're reading my post, Whereas with LinkedIn, I know where the person is. So I found it easier for me to always prospect on LinkedIn. And I never sell. That was the other thing. I don't sell. I let people know I'm an author. I let them know I'm a podcaster. And they're like, okay, well, what is it that you do? And I'm like, basically, I run online courses. I have an online university. Oh, what do you teach? Right. See, so I let them kind of lead the conversation. So that's 1 hour a week where I'm on LinkedIn, and I'm on LinkedIn when people come to me and they want to connect with me. I have a standard cut and paste thing that I ship out to them of, hey, you're connecting with me. Did you see me on a podcast? Did you happen to get Melody Ann and I's Author Nation interview? I let them know, how did you find out about me and how can I serve
Mhm.
you? And so that's what you're doing 1 hour a week, is prospecting. Okay.
Nice. Excellent. Go
Second
ahead.
hour a week, you can tell I'm a college professor. I'm sorry. Second
Yeah.
hour a week.
No, perfect. No, perfect. It means that you know how to break down a talk so that we can consume it and digest it well.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's what I want, is I want authors to be incredibly successful. You spent all that time writing your book. I don't want it to languish in a garage somewhere in a box. Okay. I want you to be able to get that message out there. So the second hour a week is, you're connecting with people. And that's where you're spending an hour each week setting up your calendar for the next week, where you're getting on 15 to 20-minute Zoom calls. Now, it's much easier now than it was in before 2020. People are used to Zoom. I used to spend the first lesson of all of my courses teaching people how to use Zoom. I don't have to do that anymore. I just send them to YouTube. It's great. But that's the thing, is everybody's on there. So get yourself a free calendar link, get a free service, make sure you have a calendar link, and that for an hour, you're just reaching out to people, getting them off of social media and asking to have a 15 to 20-minute conversation with them, because you want to know them better. You want to learn more about them. And this is not a fib. If they're trying to connect with you, or if they're friends on Facebook that you don't really know them very well, this is where you want to get to know your readership better. So that's connecting. You're doing an hour of that a week. The third one is you're wanting to, I'm sorry, I just had a moment. You're wanting to train yourself. And entrepreneurs absolutely love to avoid this one. They're like, I'd rather just read a book about how to write books.
Yeah.
I'd rather just do this about that. You can see those sweet little introverts. Now, not all authors are introverts, but 80% of them are. So there we go. We're talking to you. All right. You're 80%. You guys really get your power from that self-development that you are so good on, because you have to analyze yourself before you can write your book. And I understand that. However, there is a point, and we will have information on this, is where you need to take that book on a virtual tour. You need to get out there. And so you need to train yourself or set yourself up on what are your talk topics. I don't care if you're nonfiction, fiction, doesn't matter, but we're focused on our nonfiction people. You know your topic very well. You know how to speak it out. So you want to do that. Okay. All right. Then the third hour a week, you have the prospecting, you have the connecting, and it used to be called closing. You need to close the deal. You need to wrap them up. They need to buy. Well, actually, it's just connecting 2.0. What you want to do is make sure that after you have connected with these people, you had prospected them, that connected with them, it's called that really crazy word, follow-up. And you've probably heard this a lot. The fortune is in, repeat after me, the follow-up. So 80% of salespeople do not do 2 forms of follow-up. So if you, as an author, connect with somebody, and then 2 weeks later you follow up with them, hey, how's the cat? How was that project you were working on? How did the summit go? What did your book launch do? I don't care. You had something where you talked to them. So you reach back around and ask them a question. It's a quick email, and you can do that for 15 to 20 people in an hour. I'm not asking you to write another book. Just write a 3-sentence email. Let them know you're thinking of them. And then I love send out cards. I use send out cards. I didn't use it as the multi-level marketing that it is, but I didn't want it for a team building. I wanted it just because it's a fabulous follow-up system. I always get people's addresses and I ship them a card. So as soon as we get done here, Melody's going to be receiving a card from me. Why? Because she's cool and she let me come on her YouTube channel. Are you kidding me? So I'm going to send her a card. Oh, another thing she doesn't know that I'm going to tell you about, the other form of follow-up, she's going to get brownies, because anybody who allows me to speak to you, her community, she's put sweat, blood, tears into building this community. I'm going to send her some brownies and say, hey, good job. Thank you. And that is another form of follow-up. And so if she ever has a time where somebody bails on her, I want her to think of me as her backup guest. How is she going to remember that? Oh, Janine, yeah, the brownie lady. I don't mind that title at all. So that's the 4 hours a week you need to work on things.
That's brilliant. What you don't know about me is I love receiving cards. Like, I love receiving cards. Whenever somebody sends me a thank you card, I have thank you cards. Like, I'll just sit them around the house, because every time I walk by, I'm like, I did something good. Somebody was like, said thank you. It's like, it's such a, it's so beautiful. And the other thing is, my favorite dessert is brownies. So at least you know about me.
Bonus. That's always nice to hear. That's just bonus. So
you made a really good point. I've had people come to me, the day before going, we've run out of a guest. Can you show up? I'm like, yes. It's, there are certain things that I always say yes. And I don't say yes to everything. I think no is a really good word and we should use it often. But when somebody says, somebody bailed on me, can you fill in on this podcast? And you can say yes. That's a really beautiful thing. It's a wonderful way to support people in your network. And so I'm always happy to do whatever I can to support people in that way, right? Or is there someone you can help me find someone? Yes, right? Those are things that I like saying yes to. So when you said, when you think of, the backup person, right? I think that's a really good person to be, somebody's backup person, right? So yeah, thank you for that. Really appreciate that. Right. If you're watching live, feel free to drop us a comment or ask questions. And if you're watching on the replay, keep watching because there will be a lot more coming up. All right. So let's talk about time organizing, because you've just given us these 4 tasks that we should do. And I know what some people are thinking. They're thinking, when? Right? When am I actually, I'm already like fully booked. And so you have a new paradigm on time management. And I'm wondering if you'll just share a little bit about that with us.
Yes, this is what happens when some of the people have taken my business boot camps and they think that we're going to launch right into time management and all that kind of thing. And the very first thing I do is I say, when is your next vacation?
Yeah.
I want you to start planning out, when is your time off? Because if you don't plan the time off, it'll never happen, right?
Right.
And this is a joke. My children know about this, but it's like, if it's not on my calendar, it doesn't exist. So as soon as Google started implementing the Gmail and the calendar system and everything, my family, we built out a family calendar. And literally, when we went digital with that, it was lovely. It was about 2015. I remember 2015 is when all that started merging together. A lot of people don't remember that. And it started merging all together. And when we saw that, we made a family calendar. And unless it was on the calendar, it didn't happen. Why? Well, I had 4 kids in 4 different schools and 2 vehicles. So that had to be heavily managed. That was something that really needed to be managed well. And so that was part of the process. So I'm used to systems. And because I was a scientist, I was used to looking at things that had a pattern, things that I knew that were coming up, and I would create systems. This is what I know about me. This may not work for you,
Mhm.
but I knew that I had to have at least 2 vacations a year where I was
Mhm.
gone for a full week. So I
Yeah.
split up my vacations for a full week and I had those in my life. The next thing you want to do is, when are you going on retreat? Now, this can be a business retreat where it's just, as I like to say, the corporation of the 8 Gates LLC, me, myself, and I, and our corporate board, which is me, myself, and I, are all going on retreat. And I leave on a late Thursday or Friday morning very early. And I'm on retreat Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And I do that 4 times a year, right before we go through each one of the equinox or solstices, because as a minister, I'm exceedingly busy during those times. So I give myself the weekend before those to have a
Yeah.
retreat, because I know things will change as we go through those different seasons. Okay. So
Yeah.
when are you taking time off? And when people say, when am I going to do this? And whenever I hear an authorpreneur say to me, but I can't because I'm tending to my mom and I have my dad and I have the kids and I've got all this. And I'm like, you cannot burn hot for 24/7.
Yeah.
Just take a look at our doctors and nurses and you will see
Mhm.
this is what happens when you have that. You will have breakdowns. So you have to set up time when you are off. And it doesn't matter what it takes, but find ways to get people to take care of people. Now, are they going to take care of your mom, your dad, your kids as well as you do? No. But every time I have gone on retreat and I come back, my children appreciate me in ways they didn't even know before I left. Just an FYI.
Yeah, yeah. You know, and I used to be that person, right? I had a mom who had
Mhm.
Alzheimer's, 2 kids, um, you know, both were competitive athletes. So I used to be that mom, just completely stretched in every direction. And I'll tell you, burnout is not fun. It's
It
not
isn't.
fun.
And when
Yeah.
you have Alzheimer's or some other degenerative condition that a parent has,
Yeah.
what I highly recommend for people, if you find yourself in that place, you're in what we call the sandwich generation, which
Yeah.
means you have elderly parents you're taking care of and you have these young kids. And it doesn't matter if they're teenagers, they're emotionally young. We all know this. But when you're in that situation, realize to not get help is
Mhm.
detrimental to your health, and the whole family will crash and burn if you
Yeah.
go down, and you know that. So
Oh,
you want to make sure you take care of yourself. And it's hard to do because you're so used to thinking of everyone else first.
yeah.
However, the martyr model, which got us through some horrific times in medieval times, does not serve us well in the digital age. So
Right.
whether you get Ubers for kids, which by the way, I have done, people have been like,
Mhm.
oh my God, you put them on an Uber? I said, I checked out the driver. It wasn't like I
Mhm.
put them on with I made sure they were all diamond drivers, right? Or
Mhm.
something like that. It's like there were times I took my 17-year-old, I'm not talking about an 8-year-old, but I took my 17-year-old, stuffed him in an Uber and said, please take him XYZ. I'll pay you now. Thank
Yep.
you. Right?
Yes. Yes.
There
I've
are
done it.
times,
Yep.
right?
I've done the exact same thing. I've sent
Mhm.
my high schoolers in an Uber here or
Mhm.
there because you have your mom with Alzheimer's and you're trying to run a business and it's a crazy world and sometimes you just have to grab a frozen pizza out of the oven and send them off in an Uber, like just sometimes you just got to do that, right?
Right, and then I have the chopped up salad, bag salad that I dump into their Tupperware bowl, and that assuages the guilt of the frozen pizza. That's
Yeah.
how you feel like you're psychotic at that point,
Yeah.
don't you? Because
Yeah.
you're like, you're trying to
Exactly.
balance all these paradigms, and eventually you
Yeah.
realize what I've been
Yeah.
taught is not gonna serve me now that
Yeah.
I'm standing in 2022. Yeah.
Yes, yes. And I think as women, authors who are women and they're facing burnout, the other thing I think we have to do is learn to be, and you're saying this, but I just want to say it really explicitly, be very kind to ourselves, be very
Mm.
forgiving of ourselves. Once I went to pick up my daughter from school and I realized that morning I'd put her lunch in a liquor store bag. And I'd send her to school. I couldn't find anything. I grabbed some bag. I threw some lunch and off she went. She went to school with a liquor store bag with her lunch. And I felt devastated. At the moment, I felt devastated. And then I thought, no, wait, you know, be nice to yourself. I'm actually not a big drinker. It doesn't matter whether anyone knows that or not. I know who I am, right? And so
Right.
just kind of knowing who you are, it's really, really important. So how do we avoid burnout? Vacation, that's one thing you said. And we're talking about time management. So the first thing you asked people was, when are you taking time off? When are you going on retreats? What's next on our time management so that we don't hit that burnout?
Right. When you're getting close. When you're not at your best, you're not getting enough sleep. When you're pulling the frozen pizza. I'm going to use that one just because that is exactly what I do. Um, when you're pulling for those frozen foods a little too frequently.
Yeah.
Those are warning signs for you. They're not for anybody else. You know your warning signs. And if you don't know, like if you literally look me in the eye and go, Janine, I don't know, then I want you to start doing some self evaluation because you're burning too hot then. If you don't even have time to see what your warning signs are, then you need another layer of help. I would recommend you start calling a girlfriend and saying, hey, can you come over for an hour so I can walk away for 1 hour and kind of sit and think? And sometimes when I have done that, I've sat in my car with a cup of coffee from McDonald's because that's all I could afford was the $1 cup of coffee from McDonald's. And I would sit there with that cup of coffee and I would sit at a lake and I'd be looking out over the lake and I would realize 35 minutes had gone by and I had no memory of what had happened.
Mm.
Just sitting there, like the coffee was still full. That lets me know I'm under a level of stress that my body and my brain are trying to signal me. And so that can be pretty scary. And so you don't want to get that far.
Yeah.
So having been there and pulled myself out of those very traumatic moments, I just want you to realize yes, be very kind to yourself. And that comes to what is that weekly appointment where it's just you? And
Yeah.
I know some of you have really young children. And so, like I said, this is where you grab somebody to just sit with them for an hour and try to do your level best to sit and think for an hour about anything but children and the home and management and think about yourself. And if all you can do is journal, then just journal. But you want to make sure that once a week, you're spending anywhere from 30 minutes to an hour where it's just me, myself, and I.
Yeah.
Now, I was in a situation where I had 4 children, I was homeschooling, I was running a business, and I had no backup because I was in a country where I didn't have the husband unit at all, and I didn't have him available in any way. And so 3 weeks out of 4 literally felt like the lone wolf. But that
Mhm.
week, when I had an adult that would come back into my life, I would sit there and go, okay, I have got to have a break. And it was predetermined that when they came back, we were all together for 48 hours. And on hour 72, ding, Janine got 24 hours off.
Yeah.
So it starts slow. It starts
Yeah.
little, but then the more you start doing it, the more you relax and the more you're able to get bigger on that. So I hope
Yeah.
that helped answer your question. I thought a
Yeah.
life example would be better.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. And just to make that clear, that 24 hours was on the calendar.
Yes, it was.
Yeah.
Everybody knew Mom had left the building.
Yes, that was on the calendar, right? And so once we're kind of out of that burnout phase, and just not to be a public service announcement, but you were talking about, when you're grabbing too many pizzas out of the freezer. I was reading recently, a lot of times women are like just having that extra glass of wine on Friday. And I think that's another sign that maybe you need to, you're burnt out, right? You're having that extra glass of wine. Yeah, so sorry, I'm just public service announcement there. So once we're past the burnout, how can we organize ourselves so we don't get back into the burnout? Do you have some suggestions around that?
I do. One of those was I've noticed that I was waking up every morning at 3:05, 3:15, in that range every morning.
Yeah.
And I had all kinds of people telling me how there was something wrong with me. And I realized there wasn't a thing wrong with me. My body was letting me know you have from 3:30 to when the first kid wakes up. That's your alone time.
Yeah.
And at first, I just started getting up and I'd have a cup of coffee, I'd read a book or what have you. But then I started realizing, oh, I can do this, I can do that. But I didn't make it chores. It was never chores that I could do when everybody else was awake. I made sure that from 3:30 in the morning until 5:30 when the first kid got up, that 2 hours was things that I couldn't do unless I was alone. And that was what saved me, was my own biological clock that went haywire. And some people say, oh, well, it was premenopausal something menopause. I don't know. I just started waking up. And so instead of fighting it, I would get up. And sometimes I would be so tired at 5:30, like it was like I needed to go back. I would find a way to take a 10-minute nap in a lazy boy chair. I learned how to sleep for 10 minutes. The alarm would go off. I'd snap myself out of it and go. And I learned that from entertainers, that there were a lot of entertainers that they're up until 2 or 3 in the morning. And then they have a 5:30 a.m. something they have to go off and do. And they learned the power naps. And so I started doing that. And I used to be the type of person that would say, oh, I could never do that. I need a full 8 hours sleep, blah, blah. I found out I had heard that. It wasn't part of my paradigm. That was crap I had heard from other people. You know what? Test it. That's what I encourage women to do. Test it and realize you're going to change, and that the way you operated when you were in your 30s is nowhere the same as what you're going to be operating at 52.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Really good point. I think that listening to our clock, our hour clock, right?
Correct.
Not the
Yes.
clock, our clock is
Our
a really
internal.
really, really good advice. So thank you very much, talking about burnout and kind of how to avoid it, how to recognize it, how to get through it, how to avoid it, and all of that. I really appreciate that. Once we're there, we get to, we write our books, we put them out in the world, and then there's this thing called promotion, right? And so now we're not burnt out. We might have some time. We have those 4 hours that you have slotted for, connecting and finding work. Outside of writing, we're writing, and now we have a few extra hours for promoting. So what are some things you might suggest authors do with those few extra hours in promoting?
Before you do anything, sit down and create a plan.
Mm.
It doesn't help one iota for you to start running around. It's the difference between strategy and tactics. And I know this is very military based, but I'm sorry, I was raised by a military man. And so I think in terms of, if I have an army to move, this is why my family moves very effectively, because with 4 children and other family members and stuff, we are able to get up and leave our house within 10 minutes. People are like, oh my God, how do you do that? Well, we have systems, and I created systems, and the kids know how to run with these systems. I highly recommend for my creatives, if you want more time to do what you love, then you want to make sure that you have a plan. And the number one thing is, I know 80% of you are introverts, so go into radio. That way you don't have to worry about video. Just do radio and find podcasters that only do audio only. You don't have to worry about what you look like. And before you start any of all that stuff, is just figure out what you're going to be promoting. Now, sure, we all want, hey, read my book, right? We all want you people to read our book. Why? Because we had a message. We had something we wanted to share. But at the same time, what is it that you can share and teach? And then you want to have a media kit. And if you want, you can go to my website, get a free media kit download checklist. But the biggest thing is when you go to author podcasting, the whole focus on that is how to be a standout guest for podcasters. Because I had 4 podcast programs that got syndicated in October. And we started a radio show at that point, and now we're all over the place as a broadcasting service. But the challenge that I saw over and over again was how authors did not know how to present themselves to me so that I could promote them effectively. And so that is one of the things that I would highly recommend, is that before you start, you have a strategy. So what's your strategy? Okay, well, if you've never done this before, the first thing is you want to have a freebie, a free something that they can go to your website, they can download it, and it's a freebie. And it needs to be something that's outside of the scope of your book. Like I had this one author, it was fabulous. The books, she wrote thrillers and murder mysteries, okay? But she had, as a downloadable, a video of what it was like to go to a real police forensic event that the Denver Police Department puts on once a year for murder mystery writers on how they can write their murder mysteries more authentically, what police procedure actually is. So see, the downloadable was just her with her little camera running around saying, may I have permission to take video? And then just take video of certain things. And so it was her putting together this beautiful video. And so that's what people were downloading, was the ability to go see that. And so that's the thing. As a nonfiction author, you have to do so much research for your book. It doesn't make it into the book. So make a downloadable something that you found super awesome, cool, because those are the people you want to attract. So that's the first thing on your strategies. You want to have a downloadable. You want to be able to then be able to collect their email address and their first name. And then you want to be able to have a follow-up email sequence for them, and then have some sort of a workshop. So have all of these things kind of in place. And that way, when you start going out into the podcasting realm to promote your book and start doing all that marketing, you have a place for your readers to land, and they're cradled and they're moved from step to step to step in the process.
Brilliant. That's excellent. So first, we want to think about our strategies. And strategies are those overall ideas, right? And then once you kind of have that overall goal, then you want to get into the tactics, like exactly how do I do that, right?
So like you may want to use, like when it comes to collecting the email, you have a little form on your website, and then it can be, the tactic is, do I use MailChimp, ActiveCampaign, Constant Contact? Those are tactics. Those are details. And a lot of times authors go into the details and it's like, whoa, back up. You're just following the path of your reader right now. You're just following the path of what you're promoting. Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So just to clear, you want to have an email strategy, and the tactics could be, ActiveCampaign, MailChimp, exactly. I just wanted to separate those two out very clearly for people, because as you say, people tend to jump into tactics and they forget that they want to look at the overall strategy. And then they're in the middle of the tactic going, I don't know what I'm doing. Right?
Exactly.
Yeah. Yep. And so do you help people get on podcasts?
Yes, I do. I have workshops. What I do is you can sign up for my free media kit checklist, and then that puts you in my funnel. Now, if you're looking for a funnel that's going to email you every week, I'm not your person. I'm the person that emails you, hey, I'm getting ready to do another workshop, so we can take a look at your media kit and see if it's up to snuff. Is it saying what you want it to? Or if you don't have a media kit, before you go on a book tour, you may want to join this workshop. So a lot of times my email lists are all about letting people know about the online live classes and workshops that I do. Yeah.
Perfect. And I think that's a great strategy.
Right?
Yeah,
Well, I'm a
absolutely.
teacher. I'm playing to my strength, right?
Yeah,
I'm used to having faces looking at me. So if you want webinars and blah, 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 I'm not your person. I like seeing all those faces looking back at me because that's
yeah,
my training. Right.
yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely, because you've taught. So,
Right.
Janine, have we missed any big pieces? Have I missed a question, or are there any big pieces we've missed?
I think when it comes to promotion, you want to start small and then go big. A lot of times, authors are asked to go too big, too fast, and that's where the burnout happens. And
Yeah.
when I first started, when I was back, this is back in the dark ages of 2006, when I was first starting, I would visit one radio station a month because I had 4 children under the age of 11, and I was in a state where we had just moved. So, unless I could have a babysitter that sat in the car with the children while I was on the air. We didn't do it. So that's what I recommend. Start small and then slowly grow. You'll love what the results then.
Yeah, that is really, really good advice. Thank you, Jeannie. And I think a lot of people, because there's so many ways to promote your book, they dive in and they try to do everything, and then they get overwhelmed and give up and think book promotion doesn't work, and they're not measuring it. So there's lots of stuff. So this is really good advice. Thank you so much for those
Mhm.
final words. I appreciate them. Where can people get in touch with you? So they should go to authorpodcasting.com. I will put that in the description as well if you're listening on the podcast, or if you're on YouTube and you want to dig in, just go straight down. Authorpodcasting.com is where you want to go. Other ways to contact you, Janine?
Actually, it's all on the website. That is the fastest way to get a hold of me, literally, is to go to authorpodcasting.com. Because then, if you decide to get the book, I have a book for free, and I ask you to pay the shipping, and you will be hearing from me. And if you want an email from me or something, it's very quickly done. Yes.
Perfect. Janine, thank you very much for coming today and talking about two really important topics, right? Burnout, well, burnout 3. So burnout, time management, and book marketing, because I was going to put burnout and time management together because they really seem linked, but let's separate them out. So, we have a quick comment. Lee says, thank you so much. So many great ideas and advice. And,
Oh, good job, Lisa.
and Harjas saying, hi, Harjas says, nice to see you, Melody.
Aw.
I'm sure Harjas also got a lot out of this interview as well. Thank you so much, Janine, for coming today and helping us with this. Really, really appreciate it. And
Thank you so much, Melody, and appreciate it.
absolutely. And everyone else, we will see you next Thursday for another interview.